Welcome back, guys. It's week 8, or excuse me, yeah. Is this the 7th or 8th week?
We're going into week
We're going into week 7, 8? All right, we're going into week 8. It's the Esports Weekly, guys. Once again, Adanas joined by F. Dot and Hindu Man for way too many times. I'm honestly getting tired of you all.
Wow.
Slightly, BM.
Just a little bit.
Just say banter.
truthful.
Just say banter and move on.
It's banter.
Oh, now it's okay.
Do I have to do it with an accent?
No.
Banter.
This is going to be a pretty exciting week, though, guys.
This is a big
Super
one.
Regionals going to be coming up. We have 3 more weeks of the Smite Pro League to play, and these standings are actually pretty close. Quick reminder, though, Alpha Draft, guys, make sure to lock in your teams now because it does close 24 hours in advance. So make sure to get your Friday, Saturday, and Sunday games in place. It's your chance to earn real money playing Smite Fantasy. So some pretty exciting stuff, guys. Let's get right into it, though. We're going to take a look at North America, and Envious actually is going to be joining Smite here at the top. AFK Gaming, they have been acquired by Envy, so a pretty exciting pickup.
Very cool. That's all there is to say. It's the same exact team that you know and love, so you don't have to change anything about how you root. You just got to change, well, what you wear. Envy's a really big organization coming out of... they've got multiple teams in the console world, is also in the shooter world, so seeing them come join the ranks of Smite is really awesome. They're a huge organization, and I think it's a great step for the guys on AFK.
And what better team to pick up than the top team of North America? There's not much more to say about that. Like, Envy is the new AFK.
I'm sure the conversation went, hey, we want a Smite team, and somebody was like, well, this team was undefeated for 6 weeks.
They've dropped 2 games since then, but yeah, they're looking really strong. Only one team in the Pro League has dropped 1 game, though, and that's, sitting at the top of Europe. Epsilon is still very dominating, and then, some pretty contentious 2 through 4 spots, Paradigm to London Conspiracy, and then the big one I'm looking at is Team Dignitas really with a revitalized look.
Here's the thing, though. Both regions, you can see the cream of the crop is starting to rise to the top finally. It's taken a while, but the beer has slowly been brewed, and now it's rising back to where you expect it to be. Top 4 teams in each region, pretty much what you'd expect. Egan maybe a little bit higher than expected, but they're still around the area.
Reminder of the guys, though, Super Regional is going to be coming up in just over a month. 12 teams, 6 days of competition. We're actually playing Smite LAN here in hi-rez Studios from Tuesday until Sunday. And it's actually 12 teams. I mean, this is going to be bigger than Worlds. Team-wise, it's going to be pretty exciting. It's 2 separate tournaments, though, held really in just one spot. Make sure to check that out November 17th to the 22nd. And that's going to qualify 5 teams from the North American and European regions into the SWC 2016. January 7th to the 10th, $1 million on the line. Make sure to get your tickets now at swc.smitegame.com. And it's also going to be filled. You're going to be getting a lot of swag if you come out to Atlanta, Georgia.
Huge event coming out. I mean, it was crazy last year. You guys were both there casting and doing sort of everything. We're going to be doing different roles this time around. But as always, still approachable as hell. You can go right up to Bart and make fun of his sandals. That's totally something you can do.
You can't do that. Bart
What
will,
are
Bart will,
those? I just want to see so many tweets about what are those the whole time.
Yeah, I mean,
Bart's going to just get annoyed and be like, no, you're done. Out. Send him out. He's going to get tired. And just like some kid's going to be like dragged away.
No, that's Brandon.
Screaming. That's gonna be, he's going to send Brandon out, and Brandon's just going to be screaming, don't touch me.
Well, yeah, one of the coolest
like
things. It just winds up being like a convention. Everybody's so close and hanging out. So, yeah, come on through and make sure to hang out with us.
We're going to take a look at the schedule real quick and see all the action we have. We're going to start off very strong on Thursday with Paradigm versus Titan and Team SoloMid taking on Envy.
These games, I mean, these games are awesome. These are some of the better games that we're going to see. Worth noting that our match of the week is going to be Eager versus Cloud9. So that's going to be on Saturday. So make sure you guys don't use all of your game watching juice on Thursday, but Thursday is definitely a day to take note of. You've got 2 very exciting matchups of Titan and Paradigm, and then the North American one, Team SoloMid versus Envy.
And the similarities between these 2 teams on Thursday of Titan and TSM as well. Take them into account. They've both had roster changes in the solo lane as well. Both had hunters move back to their original roles from playing different roles, solo and mid respectively. And now we're going to see them have to take on opposition that are the top of the standpoint in their region as well.
There's a lot of parity between Titan and Team SoloMid, as well as, Paradigm and Envy, not as much. But you said, Ataraxia back into this hunter role. That's going to be really interesting for me, right? Snoopy on Team SoloMid, he was gone for a couple weeks. But we take a look, and Ataraxia, I mean, he's been out of the hunter role since the summer split. And he did play last week a little bit, but, now he's going up against a lot tougher competition in Funballer and Paradigm.
Funball is I mean, Funball is arguably one of the most aggressive hunters in Europe, and that's going to be so different compared to, well, we don't really know what to expect out of Ataraxia. We can go out of what he used to do, right? And he was relatively passive. Not exactly a guy to sit on his hands. He'll step up when he needs to, but comparatively speaking to Funball, passive in general, I think we can all agree on. So going up against Funball, this is a big shakeup to see how well Ataraxia really can pull it out.
I think between the two of them as well, Ataraxia and Funball will play similar sort of roles. Funball will probably be a little bit more aggressive this time around. He's aggressive anyway, but a little bit more aggressive because of the fact Ataraxia is coming back home to an extent to his hunter role. So we'll see how he'll perform there. But for me, it'll be down to the solo lane matchup. Xaylia up against Brotus, the new solo lane, the guy who's transferred from mid and never played in the SPL before. We've only seen him twice so far.
I mean, that's even more parity between, Titan and Team SoloMid. For this, though, I'm looking at Paradigm 2-0ing. I think they've been on a really hot streak right now in Titan. I think there's a lot of growing pains for them, and I could see you guys across the board kind of agree. And talking about Team SoloMid, Envy, and really the parity between, both of these matchups, the solo lane, it's the expert and one of the best solo laners in Xaylia facing off the new guy in Brotus. And then, looking at Envy, it's the best, arguably one of the best players in the world, Cyclone Spin, facing off against Bickham, who, while he's had some nice showings, I mean, they did lose to Elevate.
Yeah. I think you really nailed it going forth when you were talking about Paradigm and Titan. You guys saw our predictions. Across the board, we think it's Paradigm. Titan is growing pains. That's really where I think you nailed it. They're a fine team. Brotus is a fine player, but they have to work to really get to a top spot. Paradigm already there. I think as we said, we all agree 2-0. Taking a look at Team SoloMid versus Envy, though. Similar situation.
Similar situation, and it's going to be about Bickham's growth on the team of TSM. TSM back in their original roles from what we saw before. We saw the big switch with Boosh moving away, but Boosh now back on the roster. And for me, it's going to be how is Bickham going to be able to handle Cyclone Spin? But more importantly, Snoopy coming back to the duo lane again. Him combining with Ionic was where the strength of this TSM lineup lied for a long time.
I mean, I don't think it's... This is where I think these two teams differ, is in the amount, you referenced it earlier, the amount of time spent in the different roles. I mean, Ataraxia, he took a vacation and bought a timeshare in the solo lane, right? Snoopy looked at the mid lane. It really wasn't that long of a time that we saw him out of position. So then coming back to the hunter role is not going to be too difficult for him. Plus, I mean, he is a multi-role player. Switching positions isn't something that's out of the ordinary for him necessarily. With all of those positives, I still think Envy winds up on top here. I mean, they're the top banana. They have 2 losses in total. I think this goes to Envy. Team SoloMid, growing pains, that solo lane is going to be iffy.
Yeah, Growing Pains is really the name of the game for Thursday. I'm looking at Envy as well, but it's very hard for me to really count out Team SoloMid at any point in the game. I did 2-0 Envy, as we all did, but with Gar, Snoopy, and Ionic in their core roles, I could just never count out this squad. They're so consistent, they're so good, especially going into late game. As long as they don't get too bullied by Weekend early game, and Weekend, I do expect him to put a lot of pressure on that solo lane. How do you feel that Bickham's really going to be responding to it?
The synopsis with Titan and with TSM is it's week 8. This is the right time to make the replacements to get themselves ready for regionals. They don't win the games now, it's okay because they're still going to get to the LAN if they continue winning the same sort of games they've been doing so far. Continue getting there and get this team built up. Get the synergy between your solo laner, your jungler mixed in, and then your synergy between your solo laner and the whole team when team fights start. This is their opportunity to grow against other teams. And what better way to start for both these teams with these new synergies that they're going to have to create than against some of the top opposition in their region.
You're going to want to make sure not to miss any of the Thursday games. Moving on to Friday, though, probably some games that aren't going to be, in contention as much. I think these are going to be a little bit more one-sided. Taking a look, I had a 2-0 for Epsilon over Myrmidons. How do you guys feel about this one?
I mean, again, Epsilon, top dog, top banana, top of the crop, whatever you want to say about them. They lost a single game in the entire split. You can have as much faith in the French as you want. It's Epsilon.
They didn't give you a Myrmidons jersey, did they?
No.
No faith in the French, and not enough faith in Fail. Sorry, buddy. I know you're from the UK, but nope. It's going to go Epsilon all the way here for me as well.
COG going to be taking on Denial. This game is actually going to be pretty important for the North American standings. COG currently sitting at 6th, Denial at 7th. Both of these teams really need to find 2 wins. COG to kind of spread away from the pack, and Denial to make sure they stay relevant and competitive for that 6th place seed.
This is an interesting matchup. I actually have this one right down the middle, and I jump to my prediction real quick just to sort of illustrate my point. In that Cognitive, I think, is a better team overall than Denial. Hand over fist. But Cognitive also is their own worst enemy. A lot of times, I mean, we've spoken to the team after their own games. A lot of times, I think Cognitive winds up beating themselves. I think that the mistakes that happen on Cog's side sort of spell disaster for them. And Denial, although they're far from one of the top teams, one of the positives, one of the best things that Denial has is the ability to take advantage of mistakes. So I think that Cognitive is a fantastic team, but has a tendency to make mistakes. And Denial, while being on the bottom end of the bracket or the standings, they are fantastic at opening up the weakness that you see from a mistake.
For me, the big key here is Sikandar is coming to the roster for Denial now. He steps in head of Shing in that role in the jungle. It's going to be a learning experience again for the Denial roster. Plus, based on standings and how Cognitive performed this season, I can't go a split here. I'm going Cognitive.
I've got a split on the board. I think Denial are pretty strong, and I think we've seen some weaknesses exposed from COG here. These are going to be some pretty close games, though.
Did you get a COG jersey?
No, I don't want one. I don't need one.
Not all of us.
That joke always works for you guys.
Because you have all the jerseys.
Yeah, we can't be bought out. You can.
We can all off
cannot
GTA.
be bought out. But I do have a P.O. box if you guys want to send me a jersey to fix my picks. It's no problem. Anyway, we'll move on to the next one.
Dig versus Paradigm going to be coming up. And, you know, Dig's had a little bit of a tough run, in my opinion. They had that really big upswing coming out once 6 teams were announced for the Super Regionals. They won 6 games straight. And so far, since then, we've seen 4 losses from them. They've had to face Epsilon, Fnatic, and now Paradigm. The 3 top teams in Europe.
And face the 3 top teams back-to-back at that.
Yes.
It's not just like they've had to face them. They had to face them back-to-back. So I can understand this record they have for the last couple of weeks is as it is. I don't think this is the end of Dignitas. I don't think their run's going to come to an end all of a sudden. They're just going to have a troublesome weeks with the top teams, which, let's face it, they were having trouble before the announcement of the LAN as well. But now the LAN's back, I think it's going to do better against other teams.
You know, I think a big member here for Paradigm is going to be Lobster. And, you know, Zaylee was actually the European MVP, but Lobster had a really big week as well. Or, excuse me, Tom, tell me really how he's going to be matching up against the big name for Dignitas, Shadow Nightmare.
So Shadow Nightmare has been one of the more consistent players on the Dignitas roster, and Lobster has honestly not been that for Paradigm. Lobster has been a lot of the points. If you look at the slash lines, Lobster winds up with a lot of the deaths on this squad. And I mean, that's a multi-layered question, and that becomes very, very deep. But essentially, the matchup between the 2 players, I think, is going to be fine. I think it's really going to be the impact that the junglers make and all of the team fights later on. Specifically Gold Fury. Dignitas really like to pick these large burst mages and go for a lot of the Gold Furies. How Lobster really maintains that Gold Fury presence.
And then Lobster's got Agony in the God Pool, Isis in the God Pool. He can contest those big ultimate mages. Culkin, I don't think we'll necessarily see it fully banned out unless Paradigm just want to play it super safe against them. But I think Lobster can contain Shadow Nightmare.
For me, I've got this a 2-0 Paradigm. I think, you know, the Kukulkan pick, this is something that they've done very well with, but I think Paradigm have really seen through it, and we haven't really seen Dig have a lot of success against, I would say, top teams. Not necessarily a lot of success outside of it, but against top teams, they're really not seeming to find any wins.
Right. I mean, Dignitas, they had such a big upswing. They went so high, but it was really just, you know, it was a skeet shoot. They got all this momentum just to be shot out of the sky by the top teams in Europe, and I don't think this Paradigm squad is going to be any different than going up against Epsilon or anything else.
I think this will be closer personally but than what we may say. Like, it's Paradigm 2-0, yes, but I think Dignitas will come out and show something once again, because they showed some good stuff against the top 2 teams as well, but I don't think it's going to be enough to find a win.
LC going to be taking on Fnatic for the next game on Saturday, and Fnatic, for me, they're just so strong right now, coming off a hot win against Epsilon, finally bringing the Titan of Europe down. You know, they traded out, and London Conspiracy, they were able to find a win against this team in the last matchup, but I think this is a new Fnatic.
I think this is easy peasy effing CZ. I think earlier in the season that Fnatic had some issues. They identified the issues. They fixed the issues. They're winning. That's the story.
And LC, they've had a substitute with Cherio coming in a couple of times this season as well. Maybe he'll be back again. I don't see Fnatic falling here. 2-0 Fnatic.
I don't even think the Cherio is a negative on the side of
I don't know.
Conspiracy.
But here's the difference is you don't have a full roster that's main staple and train together every single week. That makes an impact. Whatever you say,
Cherio's been playing a lot of games.
Yeah, Cherio plays with the team. He scrims with the team.
Maybe he's new roster then. At the moment, he's still down as sub, from what I understand.
I'm gonna have to get the story behind that and see what's going on.
Just to reiterate, Soggy Sandal is the official starter, but he's had problems week in, week out, and Cherio has been able to step in as a multi-role substitute. So they've seen a lot of success. Success against Fnatic, different story.
Yeah, Team SoloMid having their second match of the week against Enemy as well. And this is, both these teams find themselves at 10 wins currently. Team SoloMid having 10 losses, Enemy having 12 losses. And, you know, Enemy, it's kind of weird, right? Because at the beginning of the split, I think most people, you know, community and casters alike really counted this team out. They had a lot of really nice, strong wins coming out of the gate, went 7-2, held that second spot for quite some time, then had a lot of losses. And then we were kind of like, all right, this is the Enemy you expected. But then, you know, the last match they had against Cloud9, these were two games that went like 30, 40-plus minutes and were very close.
Yeah, I think Enemy is a team that I'm still not convinced. I don't know if I'll ever be convinced. I mean, you were talking about them a little bit earlier.
I personally, for me, I'm going to go split here. I know that people might be like, whoa, really, over TSM? But with how TSM line up against Enemy, Enemy's all about the teamwork aspect. They feel like the old Titan to me. When Titan first showed up on the scene, they weren't individual all-stars, but what they were was a team that worked very well together and took games late because of it. Now, granted, last time they faced off against TSM, they were their quickest losses in the season, but with Bickham now on the side, this isn't to discredit TSM in any way. So they are individual all-stars, but they're missing an all-star that they used to have with a new member now. And Enemy, I think, with their teamwork, they can probably pull out a win here. That's why I've gone with the split option, even though it says TSM.
So, teamwork, yes. That's sort of, individually, these players probably aren't as skilled as some of the top-end teams on the side of Enemy. And that has always been, sure, it was when Divios was with the squad, but that was when Team SoloMid's identity. All right, we're just going to beat you by individual skill strength. And I think that's still a situation that Team SoloMid can push. Bickham, I think, can match up against Salt Machine. I don't think he's Divios level. I don't think he's going to take over the game, but I think he can match up against Salt Machine.
New on the team, new team member, got to get that synergy for the team fights.
Yep.
That's what's been the big issue.
I think these, for what it's worth, Hindu, I think these will be longer games. I don't think the TSM is going to come out and win in 20 minutes. I think they'll be longer, but I think they'll be TSM.
I mean, most to be fair, most of Enemy's games this season have gone more than 29 minutes, apart from the ones against TSM, which were 23 and 29. So that was the only time when we've really seen Enemy have quick games.
For me, I'm really looking at the parity between, you know, the TSM versus COG last week and this TSM versus Enemy, where adjust for Enemy doesn't put out a lot of pressure on the solo lane, much like DJ Pernicus doesn't put a lot of pressure into the solo lane. And we can really see how good I think we saw how good Bickham is in team fights. You know, he played that solo back in. Actually, I didn't go back and watch the games, but I'm pretty confident that he did not miss a single pluck on the god. And when Bickham is left alone, he could do fine. Like, he's a great team fighter, and I don't think we're going to see a lot of lane pressure, or excuse me, a lot of gank pressure from Adjust onto it.
Sure.
That's why I've gone Team SoloMid. I think this is going to go late game, just like Enemy versus, or excuse me, TSM versus COG, and for me, I've got TSM. Next up, though, match of the week, guys. It's going to be Eager versus Cloud9, a rematch from the COG Invitational. It went all 5 games at a best of 5.
That's not the Cloud9 roster. There's one man on that list that doesn't play there anymore.
Is that man?
There's 2! That's even more confusing.
You got smoked, but no.
I didn't notice. I was like, I thought it was all Eager.
I know who you're talking about. You got tricked. Even though that player has blue hair, it's actually Barracuda. He's got pink hair now. I know we all know
that's
that.
That's what threw me off. That's what threw me off completely.
Sure.
Omega, though, you know, he's played for both of these squads. He played for Cloud9 for, you know, nearly, if not 2 years, jumped the ship to Eager, and you can really see Eager has done well from it. And, you know, Cloud9 had their struggles early on, but they won the COG Invitational against this team. This Omega versus Baskin matchup, I think, is going to be the deciding point in a lot of these matches.
This will be a lot of fun. 2 solo laners, 2 very different approaches to the game. Omega tends to be the chunky frontline bruiser. Baskin can do that, but more often than not, we see him on these aggressive characters. So, you know, as we take a look at what Omega can do, I think this is, I think we see more of this than we see more of what Baskin brings. I think right down the middle that Eager has this big, powerful solo lane.
Here's the thing with Omega. For me, Omega is the front line of front lines. He's probably the best person to play a front line from the solo lane. Out of all the solo lanes we have in Europe and NA right now, this guy's always in the front line, causing an issue. You always speak about him like zoning, tanking up for his team, body blocking, baiting. He does all the things that you want from a good solo lane to do on Warriors for the most part. He'll play the tankies, always teleports in the right time, and it's really been a really good backbone for Eager and just accelerated them and catapulted them this season.
So we're going to take a look at our predictions real quick, and I believe we've gone split across the board.
Oh, yeah.
We both agree that
Oh, yeah.
these are two top teams, likely to be the 2 and 3 seeds heading into the Super Regionals unless something crazy really happens or Team SoloMid suddenly becomes like amazing and wins out.
So
I want to ask each of you a question though. What does each team have to do to win a 2-0 here? Because I think all these scenarios are possible because these teams are just that good. Tom, I'm going to ask you about
take
Eager.
Eager.
What do they have to do?
Sure, I'll take Eager because I think
I'll take Cloud9.
when we put 50-50s here, I think generally we have an idea of which team it sort of leans to. I certainly do. So I think this one leans towards Eager.
Okay.
Winds up being a split, and the reason being is largely because of the mid jungle situation. I think that what Lazarus and Dare to Care do to put pressure on an MLC stealth will make Andy respond, and Andy's great at responding. But I think that Eager will sort of have sort of a leg up in that regard. So that's where I think these teams need to focus on. Team SoloMid, they need to make sure that they protect wherever Dare to Care decides to put his efforts forward.
Surprising you should say where Andy responds. And Andy, when he goes off, does he go off and carry a game on his back? For sometimes in the SPL, we've seen it before.
Oh, yeah.
And this season, I think if Andy can do that and just play his way, what he should really do, though, is head on over to his old friend in the solo lane that he used to know, Omega. And Andy should be sat there just camping all day. He should put a tent down. He should cook some hot dogs. Everything should be going
Not the
great
hot
for them
dog.
over there.
No, I mean, I'll take
Cook
a
some
hot
hot
dog,
dogs,
Andy,
chill
any
out in
day
that
of the
lane.
week.
And here's the
I'm
thing,
ready.
because they know Omega, right? They know Omega.
is the
what they
wrong
should be
Andy.
doing, that's not the right Andy.
This is the wrong
That's a
Andy.
different Andy.
And Andy's
I
here,
got
guys.
beads.
Are they Mardi
Do I
Gras
have to
beads?
flash it? Thank you.
You are just like
I
you
get
know
it.
You're GTA now.
I get it.
Then you officially are.
Hey,
GTA.
cousin, want to go bowling?
you are just a stereotype.
So-
you are
so-
literally a stereotype.
I'm wearing track pants. I'm wearing like these Adidas, like the pants that go swish swish. It's the same color as this. And
Swish, swish.
when
Do
I
we have to
when
do this at the middle of Eager, like
when-
Cloud9?
when
Like,
I-
couldn't we do this
when
like
I could-
after
when
we
I
were
got
finished
out
with
of
the
my
match of the
apartment?
week?
When I left my apartment, I looked down and was like, I'm going to be made fun of today because I just look like that guy. I got in. Within 5 minutes, Kelly made fun of me. Adanas made fun of me. Andy gave me a freaking dude from Queens chain. I mean, I've got one at home.
Okay, back on
All right,
track. Back on track.
Here's what
Eager
Andy
versus
does.
Cloud9.
Andy goes, sees Omega, and says, "Hi, Omega, how you doing?" He knows how Omega plays. He'd be like, "Omega doesn't like anyone coming to his lane, so camp his lane all day." Omega doesn't like losing his tower, so take his tower at 3 minutes in. Focus the guy you know how to play
Look at
against.
the insight.
Thing is, though, I nearly threw my pen. See that catch? Thing is, though, Omega knows Cloud9, so he could turn it around and do the same thing. And like, we all know, say for example, Barracuda gets really upset if you camp him. Camp Barracuda.
At the end of the day, the question I want to ask you guys is, so did you guys split this because you were afraid of commitment?
No,
Like-
I think these are two teams that are pretty equally matched.
Yeah, I mean, that's really where I landed. I put it on a split because I think both of these teams can 2-0,
Here's the reason
and I
for me.
just didn't want to roll the dice.
Here's the reason for me is because Envy is going to be the number 1 team from NA going to Worlds. The number 2 team going to Worlds will be one of these two.
Likely they're going to
The
be
other one's going to be wild cards.
It's very
That's my
likely
call.
that they're going to be on the same side of the bracket away from Envy.
I
like
feel
I said.
these two are going to be one of the 2 teams going to Worlds alongside Envy. That's why it's so close.
If you want to win Smite, you got to get them
It-
to F6 or kill the Titan, folks. You heard it here first.
Eager versus Cloud9 is the game you guys are not going to want to miss
Mish.
this week, especially it's going to be closing out Saturday, and then we're going to open up Sunday here with a little bit more one-sided games. First off, Fnatic versus Myrmidons. Like we said earlier, I don't think Remnants are going to find a win this week. They're facing 2 of the best teams in Europe, in Epsilon and Fnatic. This is a 2-0.
Yeah, easy peasy. It's just Myrmidon's not their week, unfortunately. Fnatic, they beat the unbeatable team. Myrmidons, well,
Fnatic 2-0. It's just simple as that. I think everyone expects it on paper. We do see upsets. Maybe we see one here, but probably unlikely.
Fnatic.
Unlikely.
Next up, it's going to be Epsilon facing off against Justice, and much like this last matchup, I think across the board, this is a 2-0 for Epsilon, I believe, for everyone.
Top
Yeah.
dog.
I'm
The
pretty
only-
sure you already have your Justice jersey, so you don't need to vote for them.
I've been told it's in the mail.
Predict them.
We'll find out.
Not get
When
bought
it
out.
comes up- for me, if like Myrmidons or Justice, either of them this week can get a win out of this, is a good week for them. At the moment, though, they should just take the experience and try and learn.
Next up, though, going to be Cloud9 versus COG. Going to be the first NA game on Sunday. And this one, me and Hindu have Cloud9. You have a split, Tom. We're not going to go into too much detail, but really just give me your perspective on why you think Cloud9 are going to be able to find a win.
Well, I think Cloud9 are going to be able to find a win because they're a very good
Or
team.
excuse me, COG.
Yeah,
Sorry, not Cloud9, COG.
I think the question really is about COG. I mean, you guys know my history. I never really count COG out, and I think it's because they're a very talented team. Now, as I said before, COG has a tendency to beat themselves, so I think going up against a very hard team, it's going to be tough. But COG has the ability to beat these top teams, and I think as we watch this week, I think that we'll be able to see that. Most notably, I mean, they just have what it takes to take down Cloud9. So as long as individual mistakes don't come out too much, I think we wind up seeing this as a split. Cloud9 isn't a behemoth. They're not unbeatable, and Cloud9 can make sure that happens.
Maybe they do, but this is free FP week, so I win Cloud9.
Not again. You know, you actually said it was not free FP week
I know,
last
did you
week,
notice?
and like we almost all got our predictions right outside of like I believe one, like the Epsilon Fnatic. No, even then, like one of you guys went split. Like that was
It wasn't free FP week.
it
It is
wasn't
this week. That's all you need to know. Move along.
Stop with your free FP week.
Free FP week.
Graham. Elevate versus Denial going to be closing out week 7. And this one, much like the COG versus Denial, going to be pretty close. Elevate, they're really on to their last legs. They're on to their last breath this week because if they can't find a win against Denial, who's 7th seed, they are almost guaranteed to not make Super Regional.
Here's the storyline for this game, right, boys? You ready? Whoever loses this game should just pack their bag for relegations because that's where they're going.
Relegations isn't land, dude. You just play from home.
Still pack a bag.
He actually kind of got you on that
Filled
one.
with
Still pack
Cheetos
a
or
bag.
something? I mean, where you packing your bag? To the bathroom to cry?
You know what? It's a bad day when a reject from GTA 4 ends up
Hey,
outbanding
I
you.
love my cousin Nico. For me, though, I'm looking at, I know you guys went split for this one. I went Denial. You know, there is a little bit of hype around Elevate. A lot of people say that they are so strong. Even top teams are, you know, they're very strong in scrims. They win most of their scrims. But, you know, for me, what it's looking like is that they're scrim kings and they can't translate that to the SPL. There have been numerous teams that have been scrim teams in the past that, you know, just can't find the wins in the SPL, whether it's nerves or whether they're just playing up during scrims. I'm not seeing it from them. I think Denial is going to come out and win this. Even though I have a split, I believe it's going to be Denial.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. When I think it's a split. I think Elevate's capable of winning. I think that Denial and Elevate are very evenly matched. I think that they can come down the middle and each take a game home. But talking about Elevate, sure, they showed up once this season
Against TSM?
ever.
Against TSM?
Sure, it was TSM. It was a wounded TSM. They've only showed up once, and like they showed up really well. But it doesn't matter how well Hindu Man casts in the bathroom in front of the mirror. It matters how well he does it on the actual cast. And when he makes mistakes, you guys can make fun of him on Reddit. That's the same situation with Elevate. Doesn't matter if they win in scrims, but it's a different story when you come to SPL.
You know, yeah, I take a look at Elevate and how they did last week against AFK, a team that likes to put out a lot of pressure early, and we saw that Invade basically just ruin Elevate's day, and the game was over from there. Denial, we haven't really seen that early pressure Denial team this split, but I think if they go back and watch how AFK played against Elevate, I think they could basically go back to their own style, play that high pressure early game, shut down Elevate early, and really just get in their heads, because I think Elevate is a team that gets in their heads very quickly.
Elevate has the opportunity because they've got that boon of being TSM. Cool. Denial, they've also got a roster change. That's why I've gone split. Pretty simple.
I think these are going to be some pretty close games, though.
Pretty simple. I'll come back.
This week
I'll do you in every way. You have to wear jewelry to look good.
Week 7 is going to be pretty intense, guys. Make sure not to miss any of it. Really, this really big Thursday, and then the match of the week, Cloud9 versus Eager to close out Saturday. Let's take a look at the Alpha Draft top performers, the players you should be looking at when you draft your Alpha Draft team, although they're probably pretty expensive. I'm assuming they're like pretty high up there. No surprise, Adapting and Cyclone Spin, the two players that we have been looking at as really the best 2 in the world.
No surprising. 3 Europeans, 2 North Americans.
Oh, my, every single time. Oh, and AFK has 2 losses, and Epsilon only has 1. Right?
Well, that's true, though. It's fact, right?
Europe is better.
No, but that's fact. Yeah.
You guys can't.
It's like you won Worlds.
The only best of 5 you guys
Coming
can
up
win
next will be So You
is with
Think You Can
Barracuda.
Pass.
It's sick.
We're
That's the
gonna
only
have
time.
Hindu Man hosting that one alongside DM Brandon, and we'll take a look at how fantastic that can be. So stay tuned. We'll see you. Well, he'll see you in just a few.
Have a good one, guys.
We are the best region.